All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. Back again with my cohort over here, learning these perspectives for Agent Carter Season 1. Today, we're going to be wrapping up Season 1 with episodes 7 and 8, Snafu and Valediction. Two pretty great episodes. One, I think, is better than the other one. One is basically almost a bottle episode where things just kind of take place in their offices. There's one scene where they go across the street, but otherwise it's very self-contained. That whole first episode, Snafu. I think I like that episode more than I actually like the finale, even though the finale has a lot of things going on to set up, like, not just kind of end this arc of the story, but to start going on to the next season. There's some great setup and some payoffs, but to me, I think that I have to say I like Snafu better, on a more emotional level. But Snafu basically takes place, and yes, I should let her say like hello or whatever before I just go right into it. Corrie, how you doing?
I'm great, and hi to everybody watching. Thanks for sticking with us for this whole series.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to people and listening to the responses back from everybody that does watch these. And again, we know that this show's flies so far under the radar. It's a niche show within another niche show. This is like almost a spin-off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a way. Pre-S.H.I.E.L.D., really. I guess you could call it a prequel to S.H.I.E.L.D. So however you find these videos, if you're not a subscriber, please become a subscriber, hit the like button, all that jazz. Otherwise, let's get into it. So Snafu basically deals with the repercussions of everything that Peggy has been doing the first 6 episodes of this season. Everything that she's done behind the backs of everybody at the SSR, and all the emotions that everyone is feeling. That's what this whole episode is about. It's coming to terms with what she did, understanding what she did, and then dealing with the consequences. And we got the aftermath of all that. And we also deal with Dooley and them figuring out, slowly but surely, who the real enemy is. But is it too late for one of our characters? And then you have them stepping up their game with more terrorism, with a plot to use this gas that they stole from Stark.
Midnight Oil.
What's that?
Midnight Oil.
Yeah, Midnight Oil. That's something that Howard was working on to help. Gets into the wrong hands. That's kind of a lot of what. There's a nice section of that in the second episode, Valediction, that deals with why even make these things, if they fall into the wrong hands and this kind of stuff happens. We get the Dottie Peggy fight part 2 in the second episode, and we get like we got to talk one of our characters out of hypnosis so that he doesn't blow up a big gas bomb over New York. But it also deals with the immediate events of what happens at the end of Snafu, which is why I still think that the penultimate episode actually has a bigger impact than the finale, because like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before it, right? And even, and actually Avengers, it took a major character death to kind of get the heroes going in the right direction. It took Coulson to die facing Loki and get that speech from Nick Fury that this is what's going on. Look at this man that died. Aren't you pissed off about that? And you kind of have the same thing happening here. But at the beginning, it's Russia, 1943, and we see how Chenko, got started. Like, you can tell that he's clearly done this before. Like, he knows what he's doing, but he's never done it for like battle time wartime stuff. And I'm thinking that this was, I don't know if this was Fennell that they were talking about. I don't think it is. I think this was just how he was kind of found by the Russian army, that he could do these things, and where that kind of jumping off point is for this character. I know that you read up a little bit on this kind of stuff, so why don't you take it away and talk about this scene?
Yes, I thought it was really interesting. They open in 1943, and we find out that, as you said, he can use hypnosis and suggestion to change what people are thinking, but he can also use it to help with pain, alleviating pain. So he ends up using his talents kind of under duress. They tell him, "We have no more anesthetic left. You're our kind of last hope. Believe me, I'd rather be using the anesthetic, but we need to amputate this soldier's leg. And can you help us by, putting him in a happy place, like a positive headspace where he won't actually feel the pain," which ironically, maybe not ironically, they've done studies into this, and they've found that if you look at the picture of a person that you love, like the person you're actually connected to, not like, oh, this is my favorite, actor. No, like someone who's in your life. So a parent, a husband, a wife, you can reduce significantly the amount of pain you feel during a procedure. I don't think it was ever tested to this extent, but it is quite interesting that focusing on someone that you love can actually distract you from the pain. So that was neat. And we also see that he's reading a text, and it is The Tragic Life of Dr. Faustus, which was written by Christopher Marlowe, who is an Elizabethan / Jacobean writer. So he was writing around the time of Shakespeare. And this story of Dr. Faustus is about a doctor who has a bit of hubris. He thinks he learned everything, and he wants to have more knowledge and more power and understand things. He doesn't think medicine is of any use unless it can bring back the dead. So he ends up making a deal with the devil, and he gets a certain number of years of his life where he has complete control, and he has a sort of demon that's at his beck and call, kind of similar to maybe the Black Butler series in a way, and just goes around and wreaks havoc and brings people back from the dead. And he's dating like famous people from historical past, and he has lovers, and he's playing tricks on the Pope, and anyway, just doing all this crazy stuff. And at the end, he realizes he's damned and panics, and a number of demons come up from hell and drag him back down to hell. That's the end of the play. Really, real positive comedy there. But I thought it was interesting that he's reading this. He's a doctor himself, and he's reading this story of the destruction of a man who has pride and hubris, and tries to reach for more than what he should, and makes a deal with the wrong person, the wrong demon. And we see that Dr. Finkoff has made an agreement with Leviathan later on, which I saw as, making a deal with the devil. And when the doctors ask him, "Can you help amputate? We don't have any anesthetic." His one response is, he says, "Devil take me," which made me laugh, because I'm like, really? He's reading Dr. Faustus, and his line is "Devil take me." Like, that's a bit too much on the nose, but sure, why not?
But that's also that's a 1%er right there. That's what you call when only 1% of the audience is going to get it anyway. So even if it's on the nose, most people, that went right over their heads. Oh. So maybe they needed to be a little on the nose with it, just to get a few other people to go, "Oh yeah." I also really like this scene, because it's foreshadowing that we don't really understand of later when he talks to Howard, about why he's doing this. Mm-hmm. It's what he saw over there, what he saw in all that. So, he starts out with this, he just uses this ability we're to assume it, right? I guess that he was just there to help. and they used his hypnotic abilities to help people. But then once he learned of all these other things and also had been, like put in the Leviathan program,
Yeah.
And knew he can't say no to it, right? Because he saw what happens to the guy who says no. Um, he's kind of a character that starts out kind of tragic and then lets himself be kind of, his revenge makes him kind of irredeemable, where you don't really care anymore about how he got there, but there is emotion leading up to it. There is meaning to why he's doing it, not just, if he just did a speech at the end about, oh, I'm just doing this for revenge. We've seen that a million times. This is great setup to show motivation for the character and why he ends up where he is, even if it's kind of gone world domination, where a lot of it goes. Same thing about Thanos, right? Like there's something to what he's saying, but it's about how he goes about doing it, and I think a lot of good villains, if you give them the right kind of a motivation, then they stop just being one dimensional. And this character, he's kind of a forgettable, in anything else he'd be a forgettable character, because he's just some old man who can talk, like talk people into doing things. But because of this scene, it suddenly makes him more important and makes him more memorable.
And I mean, it might be a bit of a stretch, but for me, thinking about the tragedy of Dr. Faustus and like making a deal with the devil, and Finkoff's power or superpower, I guess, is his silver tongue. He's able to use words to manipulate, to control what people are thinking about, and to me that kind of makes me think of a devilish type quality. I mean, you think of like the story of Adam and Eve and the snake, right? And the snake doesn't, hold a gun to her head. He just talks to her and asks these questions, right? Do you really think God said this? Do you really think you will die if you eat the fruit? So it's all these like nitpicky little questions and putting ideas in your head. And so I think that's kind of what's so dangerous about him, is that he could be anybody. It's almost like he's the boyfriend that is gaslighting you. He's the best friend that turns out to be gossiping behind your back. Like it's words. It's the power of words, and it's the destructive power of words. And
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Suggestion. We hear that all the time when people talk about hypnotism, right? But in a lot of things, it's just they don't go into it that deep.
Mm-hmm.
They just do something to you, and then you're quickly hypnotized. And this, he's guiding you. He's guiding you there, and then gets you to focus. It's different. This is a different kind of hypnotism than we've seen before in a lot of times. Which is getting us right into the next part, where he's at the offices. He's been at the offices. He's been manipulating Dooley. He caused the other police officer to walk out into the road and die.
Yeah.
And he's basically been given free reign by Dooley to just kind of be wherever he wants. And it takes Thompson, like it doesn't change anything, but Thompson even says, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Because he understands, like, he might have come over here, but he's still like, he's a Russian.
Yeah.
We brought him from a place we don't know him. He's been here for a very little amount of time.
Yeah.
But because of his influence already twisting up Dooley, there's nothing really to be done about it, aside from somebody standing up to Dooley.
It's like a really bad relationship, and everybody else knows it's going downhill, but he can't see it. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, Dooley, just break up with your really bad boyfriend, Yeah, and we see that other people have noticed it too, like Agent Yak, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy that was hit by the car. He was the first one who said, this is weird that Dooley's spending so much time with this guy, and Thompson brushed it off, and then that agent was killed. Now Thompson comes in, and it's because Dr. Finkoff is sitting in on the interrogation, listening in on Peggy's interrogation, that Jack's like, wait a minute, why is he here? He's not cleared to be here. And I like also that Dr. Finnock uses what a person really wants to try to get them. He makes them almost complacent with the hypnotism, where he promises them what they want. He figures out what their deepest desire is. Like Dooley wants to be recognized, valued, but he also wants to have his family. And so he plays off of that, and perhaps that gives him a stronger control. But yeah, it's interesting. He just has free reign, which I thought was weird. I noted that down in my notes. I'm like, this isn't to code. This hasn't been approved.
I also like how our characters all deal with their feelings towards what Peggy has been caught doing or what they think she's been doing. From Susan's perspective, you have betrayal.
Yep.
From Dooley's, it's kind of like this impressed kind of like, he's not lying when he's like, I'm impressed. Like, I didn't realize that I had somebody this, good in my midst that's working against me. He's pissed, but and then you got Thompson, who just is
confused.
Like, if he had been the one killed instead of Ray, and she said the same things about Thompson in death, that would make more sense than what she said about Ray. Like, he's all these things, but he's a good cop. See, Thompson is a good detective. So, like, if she'd given him that speech, that would have made more sense. Because Thompson is right to have that itch that while Susan's dealing with the emotional side, Dooley's just mad and trying to figure out how this happened. And Thompson's the one who's already saying, this isn't right. I've been around her too many times. I've seen things. Why is everybody not listening to me right now? Thompson is actually like the one who's starting to make the most sense in the group.
Yeah.
Because he's taking it from logical sense rather than emotion.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go in and get revenge. He doesn't want to just beat her. He's like, this isn't adding up. Point A to point C, how did we get there? And I've seen you work before. This doesn't make sense. I found it so frustrating that they're trying to pressure her to admit that she was in a relationship with Howard Stark, and that's why she's involved with him. Like, they can't even wrap their brains around the fact that maybe she's working with Howard. Maybe she's just friends. It has to be, oh, you're a woman, and we know Howard's a playboy, so you have to be sleeping with him. And it's okay, just admit it.
Which quickly leads to Jarvis arriving with Stark's confession. And I mean, they are a little quick to just be like, okay, great. Like, there should be more than just handing over a piece of paper that proves Peggy's innocence here to me. But, we needed to kind of get there a little quickly. So they get the confession. They say she's fine. She can go, but she's out of the SSR.
Yeah.
And this is what right away we find out that Jarvis, falsified all of this stuff. He does not want her to go to jail. He did the only thing he could think of to save her from her fate, which is to forge Howard Stark's signature on this letter about all the crimes that, they want to blame on her.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really funny scene, and it shows again Jarvis's loyalties aren't just for Howard, and not just because he's Howard's man. Like, he would do this for her. He's doing this for her alone, like, not for anybody else's influence. It's how much he's a great character, proving to us that he's not just the lackey. Once again, we know this, but like, just showing, also kind of almost a tipping of the scale a little bit balance-wise, and who Jarvis is really, how good of a person he is. Howard has lines that he's crossed, and knowing that Howard won't do it himself, he's going to force it through the forgery, and letting it all kind of work itself out in the end, as long as she can, and which was kind of what leads to the second episode when Howard returns. But I
One thing
really like this.
One thing we skipped over, which I think was important, is Peggy has that great speech in the interrogation room where she basically breaks down how each of the characters view her and how that bias is blinding them to anything that she's done. Like, she has that line where she says, "You think you know me, but I have never been more than what each of you have created." Like, they don't know her. They just assume she is what they see her to be. And she says to Dooley, "To you, I'm a stray kitten left on your doorstep to be protected." The secretary turned damsel in distress. To Sousa, she says, "The girl on the pedestal transformed into some daft whore. You're behaving like children. What's worse, this is just shoddy police work. You were inches away from the woman you wanted when you were loading me into the car." Like, she calls them out on, like, here's all the things you've done wrong, and this is how you're completely blowing this investigation and now my interrogation. You know, and Thompson, even though he sees that there's something not right, he's still willing to threaten her. Like, he tells her, "You know what I'm capable of," and her response is like, "Yes, and you know what I am capable of." Like, she won't be pushed around. She won't back down. But I thought it was interesting how they have an idea of who they think she is, but they haven't really spent the time getting to know her. So everything they assume is kind of like their worst imagination of what she is or what she's done, coupled with their anger about Ray's death.
And I actually was getting to that, but I just kind of, you covered it fine. Because once they have all that, right, they did that, and that is a really important comment that she makes. It doesn't. I wasn't gonna get right to that, because to me, as great of a speech as it was, it didn't really move the plot along. It was just more like they're still angry. So I was gonna mix that in with how when she does confess.
Yeah, let's go to that then.
But this is what happens before, though, is you got Dooley calling his wife under the influence of the Russian, and Peggy seeing the code, seeing what he's doing, which leads her to just say, "Screw the confession, the fake thing. This guy is making a move right now. I've got the only way to get me out of this room is to make my own confession."
Yeah.
That she, so like now she has to convince them, after she told them off, right? All the different ways that, you guys see me, because as guilty as they probably feel, there's also that part of them that, still can't admit that she's right in this situation. Yep. So here she is, laying it all out there, everything that she did. That's when she starts talking about being invisible. Yeah. That, I was just the person, that none of you, all you thought you had to babysit me. That the only time you saw me was when I was giving you coffee or getting your lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Sousa says, no, it's either Thompson or Dooley says, Dooley, you expect us to believe you pulled off your own investigation without any of us noticing. And Sousa says, why would you go to all the trouble instead of coming to one of us? Like, really, Sousa? Really? Like, your track record is not so great. And Peggy has that great line of, I conducted my own investigation because no one listens to me. I got away with it because no one listens to me. Unless I have your reports, your coffee, or your lunch, I am invisible. And so she used something which was a detriment, being ignored and being a wallflower, in a sense, to her as a strength of, hey, well, if I'm invisible, then I'll go do stuff and solve this case.
We also have Jarvis giving her Cap's blood.
Yeah.
Another moment that he has in here saying, that this is I'm siding with you. We're the ones in the trenches right now together. It's her and Jarvis that are really the ones that are taking all the risk right now. So I love that he, again, shows his loyalty to her for this part.
And
Um,
I love the part where they're talking about Cap's blood, because that's the one trump card that she can play that will make them actually trust her. So she gives up the thing that's most valuable to her, which is Steve's blood. And I love how Jarvis backs her up when she's explaining what it is, and she's like, "Be careful with that." And Dooley's thinking, like, "What is it going to explode? Is it going to, like, is it going to spice up a mocktail or something?" And she says it's the last remaining sample of Steve Rogers' blood. And then Jarvis chimes in with, "Mr. Stark was concerned your scientists would squander the remains," which they did. you know? Um, and then her comment about why she kept this from them. I found it a moving scene because she's almost in tears, and she says, I wanted a second chance at keeping him safe.
yeah, which there's a lot of that guilt about leaving Cap in this episode between Peggy and Howard.
Yeah.
A level to what Howard's feeling that we never really knew before.
Yeah.
But and we see that when Venko, I feel like his name was like several different pronunciations. I have like Chenko, Venko, Chavenko, Vavenchenko. That's why I just said the Russian guy. I wasn't sure. The Russian scientist, the Russian hypnotist, but like what he shows Howard, we have what he shows to Dooley. And this to me is why this episode ends up being, for me, the better episode of the two, because this is messed up. This is really messed up what happens in here. And if you're not just looking at the surface level stuff, so he plays Dooley after just sitting there for 48 hours, whittling away at his relationship with his family and his wife, and just constantly in his head about what he needs to do about it, what he can do about it, and he gives him that fantasy, right? At first, you might have been fooled into thinking this was really happening, that he left, just went home, talked to the wife, talked to the kids. What are you doing? It all feels really genuine. Like these are moments that have happened, that moment that's been happened before, just kind of a natural back and forth with the family that he has. And then you realize he's asleep. And it's this beautiful reconciliation, the thing that he wants most in the world. He's giving it to him through suggestion when it's not taking place. He's asleep at his desk and telling him, to celebrate with your family, enjoy yourself, because after this we have something to do, which means, not something terrible is going to happen. It's the reason why he told that guy to go have a drink before have one last drink and enjoy, this moment in time before I have you walk into the road.
It's a twisted sense of like false compassion.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to shoot you in the head, but I'm going to let you call your mom before I do.
Or you're not going to know that you're about to die.
Yeah.
You're not going to, I don't think that guy who walked into the road knew he was walking into the road, just like Dooley. If he just had Dooley walk off the building, walk off the top of the building, Dooley would still be thinking he's there with his family. Yeah. I kind of like how you saw Howard thinking he saw the Arctic at the end of the second episode. Yeah. So, he does finally, wake up from it, but it's too late for him, really.
and he takes Peggy and Jarvis by gunpoint. Well, yep. Takes them into a separate room, and then by gunpoint handcuffs them, locks them in, and breaks off the key and leaves.
Yep.
Which I liked that moment with Jarvis, and the moment of Jarvis explaining why he counterfeited the letter. Those two were great little moments of laughter amid a really serious episode. I liked how Jarvis was like, there was panic involved. She's like, so you did this? He's like, I told you there was a lot of panic, right? And then the conversation they have about what will happen if if we break the glass, if there's somebody else there, she says they may get hurt. There will be a spray of glass. And Jarvis is like, well, what if they have guns? Well, then we may be hurt. There may be a spray of bullets. Like, just Jarvis being Jarvis.
Yeah, and while this is happening, you've got Sousa and Thompson across the street trying to investigate the windows to where the shot could, where the communications are coming from. And Sousa, of course, and it's a little annoying because you just see these, for me it is, you see these scenes where the guy's got the gun out, says shoot to kill, and because they want us to have it make sense that Sousa isn't just going to shoot an unarmed woman. It's logical why he doesn't, but it's always in these scenes that the person gets the drop on you. We all see it coming. It's literally like in a horror movie when you're at a horror movie and you're like, don't go in there. And you know what's going to happen. But he's standing there with his gun out like, hey, don't move. Like, you don't, I don't like things like this because I just never buy them. But it needed to happen so that she would be revealed. They just didn't want her caught yet. I still think he could have winged her or something, but it is an interesting fight. He does kind of, hold his own for a second. Mm-hmm. But then she drops him and gets away. But I love
the stairs scene where she's coming down the stairs. He's like, she's coming down really quickly. Like,
oh yeah, that was a complete Black Widow moment, showing her just dive down the stairs.
Yeah.
That was really, really great. But the serious part here is that after he wakes up, he's in the vest.
Yeah.
The vest that's item 17? No, item 17 was the gas. But the vest that they put on, it's this new kind of armor that Tony, I always keep saying Tony. Howard was trying to develop to, help keep people warm in bad climate.
Yeah, it was the army that during the winter time.
Yeah, and it was a prototype. It does not work. It explodes. And here you've got the Chief Dooley, or whatever his title is.
Yeah.
With it around his neck, and he, they go through everything they possibly can go through before he tragically, grabs a gun, shoots out the windows, says to Peggy and Jack, he talks to both of them, but tells her that she got a promise to get the SOB who did this.
Yeah.
And then bombs away. Literally, he jumps out and explodes. And the reason
tell my wife, I'm sorry I missed dinner. That was like, come on.
So it's just that we've talked about the different growth that the different characters go through, and Dooley. This is such a messed up episode because Dooley, I almost feel like his character's being punished. Like it's some sort of his arc was to never really fully learn anything until the very end when it was too late. Because he doesn't even get a chance to, he says he's impressed with Carter during the interrogation, right? But doesn't change the fact that in that moment, he's dealing with a traitor. He thinks he's dealing with a traitor. He doesn't see the heroic efforts that she's done. And he's also being influenced. So it's not until he's about to die that he turns to her and says, you need to make sure that this SOB gets taken care of. And there's part of me that says, yeah, he believes in it. But I think there's also it feels like a part of him is mad just in general that this is where it's come to for him. He gets the short end of the stick hard in this. He doesn't even get a chance to really grow until it's too late. Kind of like Faustus, actually, when Faustus, you talk about him realizing, what he's done, like what he's been up to. Then all of a sudden it's just too late and he gets taken down to hell or whatever. I almost feel like that's Dooley, that he sees all the information now, sees how he was fooled, but now there's no way out and he's getting taken. And I know that you can make a case that he does see Peggy at the end for what she is, but he didn't really get a chance to express it in a way that that's actually meaningful.
It would have, yeah, it would have been nice to have like an extra scene in there where like the scientists were desperately trying to fix things and he was talking to Peggy. Like it would have been nice if they could have had kind of like a one-on-one, because we get to see a little bit of his care and pride for her, but it's so short-lived. Like all he can say to her is "atta girl," like good job, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more. I'm aware we're in the constraints of a TV show, so we only have so many minutes to get the story out and on the screen. But as you say, it was sad that we didn't get more of a Peggy and Chief Dooley kind of, I don't know, conclusion to that relationship.
Wow. See, that non-conclusion actually makes me like it, because that's just not how life is. We don't just get to have, just like Cap really didn't get to have last words with her. The conversation ended when he hit the ice. So it's like life's not gonna happen like that. There are, people always talk about last words and death, deathbed words and things like that, but really, you never know. And so this was his lot, which this tragic lot of kind of being a sucker.
Yeah.
That and knowing it and just that's how I think about it at an emotional level, like what the character of Dooley's going through in those last couple of minutes of just, I blew it hard. I did everything the way I was supposed to do it, and I still am in a vest about to explode. And that's why I love it, because it's so human and so realistic. Not the situation of being in a bomb, but like just how life can end and be unfair to everyone. And it's just, I love that kind of storytelling. And I'm surprised that it went there. I honestly do, because to me, this is like one of the most emotionally impactful things that happens in the series. And not just because he had a bomb on his chest when he blew up. Just on an emotional level, character level wise, that is just some remarkable writing.
I also, like, we were talking about the similarities with Dr. Faustus, the play, and I mean, Faustus does have multiple opportunities to repent, and he's like, oh, I'm too far gone, and I'm having too much fun, right? But I do think we see that kind of hubris with all of the men, because all of the mistakes that are made, they're little mistakes, but they all add up towards this big catastrophic conclusion. Because, if Thompson had listened to his subordinate officer who was saying, this is weird, why is Dooley spending so much time, maybe the doctor wouldn't have gotten to Dooley so quickly or so strongly. And if, Dooley hadn't been so, yeah, I'm right about everything, Thompson might have been able to get through to him that, like, this isn't normal. Why is this guy hanging around? But it's all these like small little signs that are showing that something's wrong, and we don't get that. Like it's almost a sense of like hubris over the course of the thing. Hold on. Yeah. The battery's low, so I'm just gonna run and plug in my laptop. Sorry about this. I'll be right back.
Yep. I did that during one of this happened during Fandalorians, I think.
Yeah, there's only so much juice in the can, right?
Yeah, I did. I thought I would have enough juice to get through a Fandalorians with just backup battery, and it turned out that that's not the case. So yeah, this happens.
It's
But
like,
anyway, then basically we have the end of this episode. There, they gas the theater.
yes.
Which is a really great tense scene, just creepy, because to think that
Yeah.
they it hits you in a place where you're vulnerable, where you don't think anything bad's going to happen to you. Is at the movies. You might, when you go to the movies, you expect to maybe be annoyed by some of the people there, but not to, get gassed and go into a rage and kill each other. And that's how the
Well,
first episode ends.
what it made me think of was that incident in the movie theaters. I think it was one of the Batman movies was coming out.
Dark
And the
Knight.
theater came in and just open fired.
Yeah.
And that was the only other thing that I thought of when that was happening, of people trapped in a enclosed space. But the other point that was interesting is that they talked about, oh, a monster must have done this, or someone must have killed them.
Yeah.
And they figure out, no, nobody killed them. They did this themselves. So it's almost like the underlying sort of evil nature of the self coming out. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of, what hidden evils do we have within ourselves that we're not aware of, that we can be kind of
and that's the beginning, them talking about it through the second episode that we'll be discussing now, valediction, where it's again, that was pretty. I've seen them do things like that on other shows. I think it happened for me. I always go back to the X-Files, but I think there was something like that on the X-Files where a bunch of people were driven to hurt each other. But this is 47 people dead at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about this time period, right, is they go in to investigate not knowing anything about what happened. They don't even think about bio warfare. Yeah. It's just not a thing. They might have used mustard gas and stuff in World War I and World War II with Agent Orange or whatever. Or was that Agent Orange? Was that Vietnam? I can't remember. But they're not, they don't think about it happening on U.S. soil, that and not just that they don't even realize that this is just an experiment. And this is just after World War II, where we have the German scientists over here, the Nazi scientists from Operation Paperclip, working on things like this, behind the scenes. But this is just, nobody's given the local cops or anything any kind of training for this kind of stuff. So Sousa just gets infected right away, and I thought that was great that they that they quickly have to take him down.
Although what I really liked about that scene is, firstly, that they hide the canister in a baby carriage, which, I mean, that just brought me right back to with the Red Room and training the girls and using something that is assumed to be innocent to hide something that is more dangerous. So we have this baby carriage, which everyone thinks oh, it's a baby. And jumping back to the last episode, when Dottie goes to buy the carriage, she's pretending oh, it's for me, she's gonna have the child, and she's just playing the role let's hope it's a girl, and that she's planning on murdering all these people, and just brings this baby carriage into the movie theater, leaves it. And what I loved about the scene where Sousa goes in is that he beelines for that baby carriage. I mean, I'm assuming he thinks maybe there's a chance the child is still alive. He's concerned that there's a baby there. And I love that about Sousa's character. He's always the person who's either doing the investigation and finding the clues that are hidden or people are ignoring, or he's the guy that's trying to save the weakest or most vulnerable in the group, right? He's just a guy with the good heart. And he gets sprayed right in the face and attacks Thompson and punches Peggy. And yeah, they have to knock him out to get him to stop because he's just gone off the deep end.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool scene that the way that the hero the villains play on the hero's ability to like Sousa would go rushing in. That's how they're like like they know how to create traps so the greatest of people will fall for them. Like that's why it's so insidious. Is
Yeah.
because who's not gonna rush for the baby carriage? Like it's it's smart writing again. It's really smart writing.
Yeah.
And also like the writing doesn't stop there where it's like you've got Dottie and Chechevenko, whatever his name is, in the car and
Yeah.
him, they the stark differences between themselves, not to put a pun on there. He actually appreciates New York City as like a symbol of accomplishment and what people are capable of and everything. And she's more just like, yeah, and it's going to be fun to tear it down. Like
Yeah.
he comes at it from a more cerebral look, and hers is more of that hard, soldier.
Yeah.
Even though it's all dressed up in this like act,
Yeah.
that you can turn on and off. But
I
her
also,
act is hiding a cold-blooded killer, and his act is actually looking like a villain to me. Like he does, you know what I mean? Like he's just an old guy and she's a woman. Both of them do so well at hiding their villainous ways. The way he talks, the way that she talks, the training is amazing here. But seeing them actually be themselves together in this scene, I really liked.
and also their difference in approach to dealing with a problem.
Yes.
Like Dottie's response is, I'll deal with it. And it's always related to violence. Like when the police officer pulls them over, her first instinct is to get out her gun. And he, the doctor, reaches off and he reaches over and says, it's better if we stay under the radar for now. Let's like play it cool. Don't just shoot this guy. And then of course we see again how she's playing this innocent character of officer, did I go through that? Oh, I'm such a silly goose. I'm so sorry. And then she brings him in as, I'd let my grandfather drive, but he's blind in one eye. It's a wartime injury. Like, so she's bringing, and this is right after World War II. So she's bringing in like the sympathy for a veteran, for someone who's injured from the war, an elderly gentleman, and then she's the sweet granddaughter who's driving him.
Yeah, I felt really bad for the cop in this because he gets away, but it's because of another police report. Like his volume on his police radio is loud enough for everyone in the other car to hear. We're looking for a suspicious car and a woman on a car, like really loud. Whereas, of course, she's standing right there. It's like, why would you have your radio up that loud? You were free and clear. Killed by another police report. Now, he doesn't die right away, but
No.
It's like I really was rooting for this cop to get away. I really was. I was like, okay, just get back in your car. And then the radio is what does him in. And part of me was like, oh, come on. You couldn't just let the guy get away. They needed him still to be a part of the story.
Yeah.
So they go, well, if everything works right, then how do we get him caught? I'll just have him hear the radio. I don't know. But this is where Howard turns up.
Also, we have that great scene. We have that great scene with Daniel when he's in the hospital recovering, and he says, he wanted to kill everyone. That's what the gas made him feel. And then he realizes he hit Peggy, and he's like, "Peggy, I hit you. I'm so sorry." He's trying to apologize, and she's like, "It's fine. It wasn't you. You were reacting to the gas." And then he says this line of, "I still want to kill Thompson, but no more than usual." Which I was like, yeah. I hear you, Susan. I hear you.
All right. So Howard turns himself in, though,
Yep.
and explains the basically finale.
Yeah.
And everything that happened, that this gas that they used on these people is the same thing that happened to Fennell. It's that midnight oil, and it was designed originally to keep soldiers awake longer, and that one does have, like, I believe they tried that stuff with what they talk about in, like, the Manchurian Candidate, oh man, well, it was like a super soldier type of thing that people were working on, not like Captain America, but like different ways to make a better soldier. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's escaping me, but like I remember they also did this on an X-File called Sleepless, where they removed part of your brain that has that releases the chemicals or whatever that make you sleep, that make you need sleep. And wow, I can't remember that. I'm really bothered that I can't remember the stupid name of the military program that they did all this stuff on. But this, I like that they use this kind of history in here, that they've been working on trying to, make a better soldier. Everybody was. Nobody talks about all this stuff that all we see is the war films, but we don't hear about all the little things that get left in the cracks of both sides of the war and what both sides were trying to do. And this all comes up basically because of what everybody's been trying to do with Stark's inventions. That everything that he was making basically was being militarized. And now this is what it gets us, is that both sides want these things. He's inventing these things that, he, in his search to do and his desire to do good for mankind, it keeps getting tainted by one side or the other, trying to get an advantage over everybody.
Yeah, and for Howard, like he didn't set out to create midnight oil to kill people. He set out to create something that would give soldiers endurance, and so that they could last longer on the battlefield and stay up during the nights. And he mentions that it causes symptoms similar to sleep deprivation, like anger, hallucination, things like that.
Yep.
And we know that there's been studies done into sleep deprivation and how, like, your ability to function goes down. All these things start happening when you haven't slept for 24 or 48 hours, etc. Yep. And he didn't create this to murder people. It was stolen from him and used by the army. This General McGinnis took it and used it at Fennell. And that's why Howard flew out there. That's why Howard punched him in the face. That's why, because his attempts at doing something good to help his country were being twisted. And one thing I thought of, they mentioned it caused asphyxiation, and they talked about those performing the laryngotomy, of removing the larynx. Why didn't they just do that to the doctor at the end of this episode? Cut out his vocal cords. He can't talk anymore, and nobody's in danger. Like, anyway.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is a very good point.
Midnight oil. It made me think of that phrase, burning the midnight oil, right? Like staying up all night, burning the midnight oil. So maybe that's very
Again, that was like like a 1%er, like you and me get it. I just don't. I didn't want to. But basically, because of this, after the explanation of all this, Howard, they have the big press conference. They want it to be out in the open purposely. They want Howard to be exonerated publicly, and it's not just because that's what Howard wants anyway, but it's to draw out Chenko and Dottie, to let them know, like, if you want them to come at me, I just got to go out there and make myself a target, which is actually really, really smart. The one thing about that scene though that I didn't understand was why they didn't have people on the windows. Like for any kind of operation where you've got people of importance or of either celebrity or politically, whenever you set up an event, you have people look at the buildings, you have eyes on the buildings, and they didn't. And you could say it's because it's the 50s, but
snipers were a thing in the 50s.
Yeah, so they get the shot off and they run, and it sets up this whole other chain of events of switching around because clearly they missed. That was the one thing they didn't talk about is what if they don't miss? I mean, if they wanted to kill him, they could have just killed him.
Mm-hmm.
So putting him out there, was a little, not even a little, was very high risk.
Yeah, and Peggy mentions that, like, before, when he says he wants to go out there, she's like, "You're punishing yourself," and he says, "I'm redeeming myself." And I thought it was interesting. You see a little bit of Howard's heart in a way. He says, "I care what you think of me. General McGinnis is the one at fault, but I need to fix this," and so Howard cares what Peggy thinks of him. So all of those comments or those arguments they had earlier on in the season, even if he didn't show it, he cares when Peggy rips into him about, "I trusted you, you lied to me, how dare you," like maybe he didn't show it, but he does care what she thinks. And I also like how he totally throws their security system under the bus. He's like, they're like, "How did you get in here?" He's like, "Do you know who created the security system for here?" And they're like, "Yeah, this company. And they also did it for the White House." He's like, "Yeah, it sucks." So I love that. And I love that, he also says their bulletproof vests are garbage. He's like, "Where's my stuff?" He pulls out his own personal bulletproof vest, which is better quality. And so that was hilarious. So the best that the SR has, Howard's just sticking up his nose at it.
So still though, it all lands on whether or not they want to take a headshot, and it's to get Howard, it's to have the setup for the diversion so that they can get Howard Stark themselves. I just feel like it's a few conveniences happen to get us there. Like I said, not watching the window, them not clearly putting a high profile target out there for somebody to shoot in the head if they felt like it. But we see that the fate of the cop from earlier who stopped Dottie, he's the one who takes Stark. So again, he's saved, he's caught by his radio so that they can come back later it shows them planning, but at the same time, I still feel like that it's a little weak how we got here.
I also felt it was weak that the SSR didn't pick up on the fact that these bullets aren't shooting anywhere near Stark.
Yeah.
At least Peggy, I would have thought she'd pick up and be like, "They're not shooting at him. Why are they not shooting at him?"
Yeah.
There's another reason for these shots, and it's a distraction.
Yeah.
To get Howard off the public stage into the alleyway and then take him.
Also, everybody suddenly forgetting that it's VD Day, the next day. I this close to World War II ending, I feel like that it would be something that they just bring up. That's what they did. They just bring it up. Literally, that means Dooley died right before VD. It would have been more prominent to be all this right before VD Day.
Yeah, instead of "Oh, it's VE Day."
It's just Tuesday. No, they would know this. They act like, "Oh, Times Square. We got to that's 1960s Batman detective work right there, where it's really obvious right in front of your face and you don't see it because the plot wants you to watch the next episode."
It would be the equivalent to someone being like, "Oh, what's tomorrow? Oh, it's Veterans Day," or for us in Canada, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
Remembrance Day," right? Like you
Dun,
wouldn't,
dun, dun. Like,
you wouldn't
oh
know.
wow, I completely forgot. It's not like the jokes that like they have in sitcoms where the husband forgets an anniversary. This is like a year or two after, just a couple of years after World War II. We're still rebuilding. Like I don't know, but
Actually,
it does get them where we need to go to
um,
another Stark vault.
you mentioned Batman and the old movies. When they were talking about Stark gassing the city and VE Day and all the people gathering together, all I could think about was the Batman movie where there's all those floats with the gas going down.
Yes, pretty much. Why didn't they just do that again? But I guess there were just two of them. They would have to organize a parade, or
Yeah,
it somehow infiltrate the parade with enough people. So yeah, that's a lot of work.
yeah.
Um, so we know that Dottie knew where the vault was because Howard took her there all those years ago. Can't remember her name. The thing is, like, I do, like when she's smacking him around, you think it's because he can't remember her name, but I feel like her character wouldn't care that he can't remember her name.
Unless she's mad that she didn't make enough of an impression, like to be memorable.
Yeah, maybe,
I'm
maybe. It just
Russian
feels like it just seems so cold that it nothing seems to phase her. I just thought she just liked hitting him. And that the way he was talking gave her reason to, so that the audience too would be like, yeah, maybe he should stop talking and making it worse for himself by not remembering her. Because I almost feel like he's baiting her.
maybe he's smarter than me.
I feel like you take this person there, right? Unless Howard's move is to always take them to the extra secret vault.
Well, they
Like how many girls out there actually have this information? They could have told them where the secret vault was, but
they did mention that a woman to get to Howard and manipulate him to this extent would have to be a high level operative. So I'm just guessing that Dottie was able to kind of play to his ego, and he's like, "Oh well, if I have something better than that." If she like played that she wasn't really impressed with his regular vehicles and toys and planes.
so she brings him there, and this is where we find out that Chenko is doing all this for revenge for what happened at Fennell.
Yeah.
And so again, it all goes back to the first episode we talked about.
Yep.
And I feel like this, when they actually reveal all the like this is revenge, then it just, to me, it gets a little weaker because it's just, it's revenge instead of like this is our mission was to do this. Blaming Stark for making something that somebody else used, it's just, it's a cliched story. It's not bad here. It's just, they hypnotize Stark into thinking that his greatest wish, right, is the guilt. This is where we find, this is the importance and why this episode has some good moments, is the scene where we see what Howard really thinks about the Captain America situation and the guilt that he feels, like his big regrets. What would he change? It would have been to focus on finding Cap instead of everything else that he's been doing. The guilt that he feels for letting Peggy down because of it, the information that he had and didn't use, which leads to them not finding Cap for 50 years. And I think that that's really interesting because that carries over into when they go to the airport to try to stop Dottie and the doctor. It's her having to talk to Howard like she talked to Steve, and also throwing Jarvis in the mix as the person that is willing to shoot Howard down because he knows that Howard would want him to shoot him down if he needed to be stopped in some way, and that it would be appropriate that it's Jarvis that does this.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell us how you think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I liked this scene because it felt like it was an opportunity for Peggy and for Howard to both deal with the loss of Steve, and for them to both realize that, you know, he is gone. I mean, in the Marvel greater cinematic universe, he's just frozen in ice. He'll be, you know, thawed in a bit. But in their minds, he is gone. They can't keep living in the past. They need to let him go if they're going to move on with their lives and stop, you know, beating themselves up over mistakes that they've made, or in Peggy's case, trying to always be as good as Steve, live up to her ideal of Steve. Um, so I loved that. And I guess the thing with the doctor is that it becomes personal because it was the death of his brother. Like, he talks about, he was the one who had a gas mask. Not only did he have to watch all these men murder each other brutally, but his brother was in the mix. And so, I mean, I forgive the writing. Like, it's not great, but I don't mind it because it becomes a like personal vendetta instead of a, you know, we want world domination, hail Hydra, right? Or whatever. So that I appreciated. And what I also liked was that Stark kind of mirrors what, or Jarvis mirrors what Stark is trying to do. So Stark thinks he's flying out to save Steve, to bring Steve back. He's found Steve. And he makes this comment of, I'm going to bring him home, Peg. I'm going to bring him home. And when they're able to break through to Howard, Jarvis makes a comment of, you know, I'll bring him home. So I thought that was interesting that, you know, Howard's actually the one that needs to be saved, even though he thinks he's saving someone else. And we have some of these like conversations that they have where they both have to admit, you know, how important Steve was to both of them. I mean, and Howard, for him, really, the reason he's so fixated on bringing Steve back is that Steve, he feels, is what he did with Steve and the super soldier serum is the one good thing he's done in his life. Like, at this point, he hasn't been married yet. He hasn't had Tony. So he can't say, like, Tony was my greatest project and my greatest joy, which he says later on in one of the Iron Man movie recordings. But he says, you know, he was the one thing I've done that brought good into the world. And Peggy says to him, I loved him too. I love Steve too. This won't bring him back. You're the one person who believes in me. I can't lose you too. So we see that Howard, in a sense, is a support for Peggy. He's the one person who always has her back. Like, he may do it in strange ways, you know, but he was the one person who believed in her, who gave her a chance to go undercover. You know, he's the person who in a bit is going to call her and ask her to start up S.H.I.E.L.D., start like her section of the SSR division. So, and Peggy, she says, we have to move on, all of us. We have to let him go. And I think that's the journey that both Peggy and Howard have been going on for this whole first season, is dealing with Steve's death, finally being able to let go and move on. And we see it also at the very end of the episode where Steve asks Peggy, do you want to get a drink? And she's like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. He's like, no, like, when I clock out, do you want to get a drink? And even though she says no, because she has to deal with Steve's blood, we see that smile of like, hey, Sousa likes me, you know, this could go somewhere. So as a result of this conversation with Howard, we see that Peggy is now actively trying to move on.
And not to throw another accidental pun on it, but it is capped off by her going to the bridge and dumping the blood into the water. that final goodbye. Like, I honestly, since I didn't remember everything about this, I was like, maybe she keeps it. Maybe, like, could she have a bit of that kind of Nick Fury insurance kind of idea in her head? Like, maybe I should keep it. And no, they do the right thing. The character does the right thing, which is to get rid of it. That's what Steve would have said, you know.
Yeah.
And so again, they're all following and mirroring and becoming more like Cap without him being there, but now laying that part to rest so that they can move forward with their lives.
Yeah.
Um, which is a great way to end the season. I mean, we do have a few things in the Peggy versus Dottie fight. Part two is good, kicking her out the window, but finding out that she's walked away. Because you don't want all the villains to just go, and even Chenko is alive, even though he's they got the prototype Hannibal Lecter mask on his face that looks like he's wearing like an umpire's mitt without the padding. Like
Mhm.
he just looks like all stuck up. But this is also where we get Toby Jones returning from Captain America, the first Avenger, and
Yep.
his you can't say it's Toby Jones and the Winter Soldier. It was the character's computer voice. I forget the name of that's another thing that was making me mad is I can't remember that character's name.
The doctor that was working with the Red Skull.
Yeah, and he's Toby Jones is a well-known actor. He's a really good actor, and to get him back all of a sudden, that was a real surprise, even for me. I was like, oh my gosh, Toby Jones is in this. I forgot. So they're already making plans, and it sets up more stuff to come in season 2, and it gets you like excited, and then I immediately go, and that's the last season too. Like, so
another part that was fun was Peggy and Dottie's conversation, where we see that both the doctor and Dottie have like serious issues they need to work through. Like the doctor is like revenge driven, which is never good because when you're so single-minded on revenge, you tend to miss everything else in the picture.
I know.
It reminds me of Cal in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where he's so focused on getting revenge for his wife's murder with Whitehall that he just loses it when he doesn't get that. And Dottie she says something like, she's jealous of girls like Peggy. I would have given anything to walk like you, to talk like you. Now I can be anybody I want. And that's kind of foreshadowing the next season. She's obsessed with being Peggy in a way. And then we have Sousa to the rescue with Jack and Sousa going to try to stop the doctor while Peggy is in a bar fight essentially with Dottie, and Jack ends up getting knocked out, right?
Where was he hiding? Where was he possibly hiding that Jack would get the drop on Jack? That is a wide open area.
Yeah.
And he's an older gentleman, crouching, hiding under cars, things that aren't easy. Like if that was a Jeopardy question, right? It'd be so easy. Like, what are things that old men can't do?
Hide.
Right? Like,
crouch.
So it's like he just popped out of the ground and hit him with a 2x4 or whatever it was, a pipe. I'm just like, come on. But it does give us, earplugs Sousa.
Yes, I love that. And the fact that when I saw that episode for the first time, I had no idea that he had the cotton batten in his ears. I assumed I'm like, oh great, now Sousa's gonna shoot Jack Thompson. How did he know what was going on well enough to kind of go along with the flow? Maybe he was just watching the physical movements that the doctor was making and pointing to Jack. But I love that, he just punches.
I think he just was waiting for an opportunity, a window to go, okay, this is what's going on here. He doesn't have a gun, so I can
punch.
You know, it was just he was just biding his time. He knew that as long as I think he knew as long as the doc doesn't play a gun, I don't have to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that it was just a more clever way of telling us that Sousa wasn't falling for it when we thought he was.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to drag it out because that's dramatic tension to make you got to drag everybody up to the edge of the abyss before you can pull them back.
Mhm.
So they fooled us there, and that's season 1.
Oh, we missed 2 things.
Well, I mean, she gets to come back, like, and they congratulate her. She doesn't say that she's with the SSR.
Yeah. One thing I liked was when Jarvis shows up and Howard's been rescued. Howard says to him, "You're all right, Jarvis," and he gives him a hug, which is an exact opposite to what we saw Dooley saying, which he's like, "You make me sick," or he had some kind of a, I can't find you repulsive or something.
Yeah, he does say that to him.
So we kind of have
that's why I was like, Dooley never gets really redempted or redeemed or you know.
And then Jack at the end. Jack is just such, I wanted to just strangle him.
Yep.
Because, you know, he takes credit for everything that Peggy's done. And we have this, you know, Peggy shows up and, as you said, everyone's clapping for her. And the senator says, "We need more men like Jack Thompson fighting for freedom and security." And of course he assumes it's a man that did all of this. And Sousa gets mad about it, right? Jack just says, "I did what had to be done," and takes all the credit. And so they're talking about congressional honor, and the president wants to meet him. And, you know, Sousa says, "Well, it bothers the beep out of me, and I saved that jerk's life." And Peggy has that famous, now famous phrase of, you know, "I don't need a congressional honor. I don't need Agent Thompson's approval or the president's. I know my value. Anybody else's opinion doesn't matter." And it's such a great quote to end on, because earlier on in the season, we had her arguing with Jarvis about they will respect me. They will, you know, give me the value that I'm due. They'll listen to me when I bring them this information at the dock and when they were walking down the street. And Jarvis just keeps saying, "No, they won't. No, they won't. You know, they're not going to see what we see in you." And Peggy goes on this journey of, I want them to recognize me as valuable, to, I don't really care what their opinion is of me. I know my value. I know my worth. Anybody else's opinion doesn't matter. So
that is a good way. Yeah, that is an appropriate way for us to how we came in and how we ended it. Yeah, so that's season 1. You know, like, it's been a long week. I don't know if you can tell, but we're both like a little drained. Where but I honestly think that we covered everything pretty well. We are going to be taking a bit of a break in between season 1 and season 2, so I can have some more downtime to get my own, you know, affairs straight here before we jump into season 2. But we will be back in a couple of weeks with season 2, starting with the first 2 episodes of that, and then hopefully that'll be the next 5 weeks after we'll have season 2 done. Is it like 10? It's 10 episodes, right? So it's only 2 more than this.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it yet. So
I think it's 10. If it's 13, then even better. So we'll be back then. We'll check out in a couple of weeks when we come back for that. But I want to thank everybody that watches these. I want to especially thank Corrie here for doing these. To when this gets uploaded, it'll be Friday when you guys see this. So today, so I might as well not call it Thursday. Today, when you see this at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to be continuing my holiday reviews of 2020 with the Muppet Christmas Carol, where we'll be watching it and then doing a live review at around 8:30-ish when the movie is over live on YouTube. Corrie will be with me for that as well. So looking forward to that, because it's one of those Muppet movies that I never saw.
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen Muppet Treasure Island. So those are the two that I missed. So we're going to be dealing with that for the next holiday episode tomorrow night. Then that's Saturday. It's Vandalorians over on D's Reviews at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. And then Sunday afternoon, we're going to be doing a viewing party and live review for the movie Trapped in Paradise. That's another holiday one. That's with Nicolas Cage, John Lovitz, and Dana Carvey. Where they play some guys who are trying to rob a small town bank and get out before this big Christmas storm hits. That's Sunday. And then Mondays, of course, we got his Dark Materials Season 2, where we've only got 3 episodes left of that. And it sounds like I'm still doing a lot of content because, yes, on Twitch, it's Smirking Gun Plays. Or on YouTube, it's Smirking Gun Plays. We're playing video games all the time. And at the comic book show on Sunday night, I forgot about that. At 8 o'clock, we go live for the Comic Books You Love, Episode 3, Best Issues of December, where you can join. Tentatively, my guests are Skip and Tosh, Wildebeard Reviews, and Gateway into Comics for that. So my goodness, it doesn't seem like I'm taking a break at all. But Corrie, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Sorry, I kind of jammed up that with all my stuff.
That's okay. So you can follow me on my author page at CL Shoemaker. Or you can find me on YouTube at Soothing Scriptures, or if you type in at Biblical Bliss, it will show up there. And my writing webpage is Literature with Charm.
All right. So, yeah, again, thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe. Also, the last thing I didn't mention, how could I forget to mention this, is that next Tuesday, Corrie and I and Don Willie from A Dawn of Ice and Fire and Darren Jakes from D's Reviews will all be on D's Reviews channel at 8 o'clock Tuesday night to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2. It's the big 2-hour retrospective on all things Season 2. So if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter or both, that'll be the place to go to see us talk about that. So thanks for watching, everybody. We will be back with more Agent Carter Season 2 with Corrie on those as well. Until next time, though, folks, have a great night, and thanks for watching. Get ready for Season 2.